Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, I shouldn't feel this anxious? Nothing catastrophic is happening, but you're overwhelmed. Your patience is shorter. You're emotionally exhausted. You're forgetting simple things. You're craving sugar. You're snapping at people you love. You're living with a brain fog. And somewhere deep down, you've started believing maybe this is just who I am now. But what if your anxiety, your brain fog, your low mood, your lack of motivation isn't just happening in your mind? What if your brain is simply missing the raw materials it needs to function the way it was designed? Because every single bite you take just isn't feeding your body, it's feeding your brain, your hormones, your gut, your emotions, your ability to heal. Today, we're unpacking one of the biggest missing conversations in women's health: the connection between food, gut health, hormones, brain chemistry, and emotional well being. Later in today's conversation, Dr. Shawn is going to explain why one of his very first improvements many of his clients notice isn't weight loss, it's hope. Because when the brain finally gets what it needs, people often begin thinking differently, long before they ever look different. Stay with us because this conversation might completely change the way you think about the food on your plate. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. Vibe with me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, helping women uncover the hidden patterns contributing to pain, fatigue, inflammation, and survival mode so they can regain trust in their bodies, reclaim their energy, and feel in control again. Because one thing I've learned is this: your symptoms may be physical, but the pattern is often deeper. Welcome to the Good Vibe Studio, Dr. Shawn.
Hey, it's great to be here. That was a great intro. I want to tune into this. This sounds great.
Dr. Shawn, you once said something that stopped me in my tracks. If you can help someone feel better, they naturally begin making better choices. Tell us where this realization came from.
Yeah, well, I've observed it for years. If people sort of change their diets, right? We try to get people to get off of processed foods, off of standard American diet. Eat more fruits and vegetables, eat more whole foods. That all that kind of stuff, and they clearly feel better, and that's great. But what you also see is that as they start to feel better, it sets off this what I like to call a virtuous cycle of they feel better, and because they feel better, they start making better choices in other aspects of their life. So, for example, one of the ways that people feel better when they start eating a different way is they have more energy and they have more motivation. And so you see people, they start to become more physically active just because they feel better. They have higher motivation, higher energy. They're more likely to go for a walk. They're more likely to work around the house. They're more likely to, start a garden or whatever. But it's that idea of like this little step leads to another little step and another little step. And we see it we see it in other areas. Like you eat better, and that can help with your stress response. So if you're less stressed out, less chronically stressed, you might start sleeping better. And so now that you're sleeping better, that changes your hormones like cortisol and things like that. It helps with your blood sugar control. That leads to other positive health effects. So it's this idea of like you make these little dietary choices, and then pretty soon, if you stay consistent with them, you look back and you go, "Oh my gosh, I lost weight and I wasn't even trying." Or now I'm an exerciser and I wasn't even trying to become an exerciser. It's part of what I do now. So like that idea of biochemistry driving behavior is really, really cool to see. And we see it all the time.
And I love that you ended on biochemistry driving behavior. It's, I don't know if it's just the two B words, if it's just like a vibe, but I love the biochemistry driving behavior because I like what you said. As they feel better, they start to make better choices. And I can
Right.
attest to that. It's almost as if something that came to mind when you were speaking was your identity starts to change.
Yeah,
So
totally.
now you said I become an exerciser. Step after step after step, you start getting more energy, more motivation. And I realized that with my own healing journey, it was okay. I'm diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids. We're in a pandemic. They're saying all these conditions have no cure. Like, am I at a doom's end? Do I not find my
Right.
identity in these diagnoses? Or what do I see are the root causes? How are these things similar? Or, how can I truly address this? And for me, it was inflammation. I saw that a lot of the common things for all of those chronic conditions and symptoms I was experiencing was inflammation. I was like, okay, well, how do I live an anti-inflammatory life?
Right.
But again, it starts with the food, because we choose food every single day, right? And
That's
that's a lot
right.
of decisions come around food. I was speaking to one person, my best friend, and we were like, what are we going to eat? And it's like almost becomes a task, because we're thinking about what type of food experience we want to have and want to
Right.
explore. And it's just like, okay, but why is that? Because we know that food nourishes us, food is something that drives us, food is something that brings people together, and you kind of want
Hmm.
that good food experience. When you think about people wanting to make a change, and it's hard for them to start thinking about less processed foods, no sugar, all of those things. When
It's
you're healthy,
hard. It really is hard. Yep.
so
I
tell me, what do you feel
acknowledge
like
that.
are
Yep.
those top 3 challenges that you feel like people are experiencing when you say, okay, let's start with this food thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is that people don't think about it, right? It's so easy these days to just go through the fast food drive-through. It's so easy to pick up the phone or your app and order something. It's so easy to just, pick up the closest thing. Like it's simple, right? So it's more difficult to choose something healthy, because a lot of times that healthy thing, you need to prepare it. And sometimes people don't have the cooking skills. Sometimes you feel like you don't have the time. Sometimes you're just exhausted, and you just like, I just need to get something down the hatch, and that ends up being a fast food process kind of a thing. And that's terrible, because you're kind of, you're stressed out and tired, and you eat something that's just like a convenience food, and that's going to lead you to be more stressed out and tired. That's what I call the vicious cycle, right? Of the food
Mm.
changing how you feel in a negative direction, and sort of keeping you stuck in that feeling blah all the time. But if we can get people to just, even if it's just one meal a day, it doesn't have to be changing everything. It can be as simple as, you know having a smoothie for breakfast instead of skipping breakfast, or having a salad for dinner. Like, one of my kids tease me. My kids are adults now, and they tease me and my wife, because like our default dinner is a big salad with some sort of protein on top of it, right? It's a chicken off of the grill, or a piece of fish, or whatever, but it's a big salad and some protein, right? And that, like, you can be so imaginative with what you're going to put in there. It's not the same dinner. It still might be salad and protein, but it's completely different every single time, and that helps you feel better and better and better. So that's probably the first thing, is that people just don't make that choice. They're like, I'm going to do the easy thing because I'm exhausted. And if they did the thing that was just a little bit more, prep work, they would feel so much better. I guess the next one is that they don't have that experience yet, right? You have to do that for a couple of days or a couple of meals before you really start to go, "Oh my gosh, I feel completely different here." Your energy is better in the day, and your motivation and your mental focus and your sleep quality, and you do that for 2 or 3 days in a row, and you go, "Oh my gosh." But you have to do it in order to have that experience. Um, and then I guess the last thing is that, people think it's going to be hard. And it's once you do it a couple of times, you go, Why haven't I been doing this all along?" Right? I thought it was going to be this big, complicated thing. And once you do it a couple times, you're like, this is actually pretty easy peasy. Like when we started doing the salad thing, it was a bag of salad. It's as easy to open a bag of salad and dump it in a plate as it is to, open up a fast food container, right? And it's good for you, and it's delicious. And anyway, I could talk a long time about this, because I've seen it change so many lives.
And I love it. I love that you could talk a lot about it. And I like that you broke down the simplicity of just busting open a bag of salad
Yeah.
and putting on a plate, just like you would your bag from, let's say, Uber Eats or,
Right.
whatever restaurant that you would like. And I honestly, even when it comes to that, like Dr. Shawn, I even get to a point where I'm ordering the salad off of
Yeah.
Uber Eats. And it's like once I get it and I'm eating, I'm like, okay, I just chose this over convenience because I could clearly have made this right here at home.
Yep.
And that's just how simple it is. And again, it goes back to convenience. So I'm glad that you talked about how easy and simple it is to choose meals, foods, around convenience. But I also like that you talked about sometimes the hindrance or the block or the challenge could be cooking skills. If you're not well versed around the kitchen, you may not know how to easily just prepare something that would be nutritious because you're so used to preparing something that's not, or just not preparing food at all. Because again, you
Right.
talked about time, not having the time to properly to even invest in preparing food because you'd rather just grab and go or make it convenient or order it. It's a different thing. And then just being exhausted. So many women are just exhausted and they have to
Hmm.
feed themselves, feed their kids. I just see it, feed their spouses, their partners. And I honestly feel like sometimes I've seen women make sure the kids eat and they still don't eat or haven't
Yeah.
found the opportunity. And that kind of gets into a survival mode pattern that I call self-abandonment. And so I feel like there's this identity and role that women take on that they think they prioritize showing up for everybody else, and
Right.
they realize and they never really realize how they're not showing up for themselves even just a quarter of how
Right.
much they're showing
Right.
up
Right.
for
Exactly. I see
everybody
that
else.
kind of thing all the time too. Can I say something about that? I
Yeah.
so to those women, right? I see this all the time in the people that I work with. I will say to them, you know what? Have you ever flown on an airplane before? What does the flight attendant say before you even take off? They say, if there's an emergency, the oxygen mask is going to fall down from the ceiling. Put your oxygen mask on first before helping someone else, right? You need to do that with your lifestyle, right? You need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself because that's good for you. But then because you're taking care of yourself, that's good for them. It's good for the kids, it's good for the husband, it's good for the extended family. Like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You need to make sure you have the resources and the resilience in order to be best at, doing the mom thing or doing the caregiver thing.
I agree. And I like that airplane analogy because it truly is first. And I honestly feel like if you pour into yourself and care for you, you're able to truly show up, serve, love, and give at a
100%.
whole different capacity than you ever would have if you hadn't. Y'all, this episode of the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast is sponsored by Forward Vibrations. Y'all, check the show notes and go take the Spot Your Trigger quiz and check in with Forward Vibrations. Support the movement that is supporting your healing. Now, let's get back into the conversation. So, Dr. Shawn, you also mentioned that you want people to get imaginative. You want them to really just be creative when you think about it. And sometimes I think that's where the fun comes in to choosing to eat better, choosing a different option when you're being more intentional with how you
Hmm.
nourish your body. And I like it because me and my mom started juicing. And we started to juice with the fours and we were going, do little clips and we talked about what we created and we were thinking about all the different fruits and vegetables that we're combining. And it led me to even doing like a juicing certification. But I like that you said choose one meal a day. Maybe it's how you start your day with a juice or a smoothie, or maybe
Hmm.
just one meal is going to be a anti-inflammatory meal or something that has no
Yep.
processed or minimal processed foods, just to be intentional. And I really believe that picks up the momentum of how you take care of yourself, and how you take care of yourself leads into how you start to love yourself. And I think
Right.
that's what I love most about my healing journey was as I continued to make different decisions and choices around this whole diagnosis and the state that my health was in, it was like, oh, I didn't know I could love and care for myself the way I am just because of how I'm now approaching my lifestyle. And so I really want y'all to really take in what Dr. Shawn is talking about. He's a biochemist. Like, he knows what is really happening and what's going, a nutritional biochemist. He knows what's happening to food and how it could truly wire and program and give you all these nutritional benefits. People change their lives much faster when they feel better first. And I think that's something that we need to make sure that we always remember. So let's put the word better in the comments if you're vibing with us on the Wellness with Jovonnie YouTube channel. I think that a powerful shift here, because I feel like so many women, Dr. Shawn, are trying to force healthy habits while feeling exhausted, inflamed, anxious, discouraged, because it's really hard to build a lifestyle when your body just doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel supported. Why do you think that we've been taught to separate mental health from physical health when biologically they were never separate to begin with? And how does food actually influence the chemistry of our brain and our mood?
Yeah, well, we're in a really interesting time right now, scientifically, where the scientific world has gotten up to the point where we really understand this food mood connection at a biochemical levels. And that's one of the reasons that I talk about biochemistry so much, is that we know if you eat this, it's going to change your biochemistry, right? So right from the gut, it's going to change the bacteria that are in your gut. It's going to change the compounds that the gut bacteria are making. So the gut bacteria will make 90% of your serotonin, which is, sort of the neurotransmitter of happiness, makes about 70% of your dopamine for motivation. It makes about half of your GABA to help you relax during stress. It makes so many signaling molecules. So, the science is now telling us, the cutting edge of science is that if we eat certain foods, they're going to change our bacteria, change these neurotransmitters, change the way that we feel and perform. So now we can sort of understanding that biochemistry, we can say, oh, if you're stressed out, this is why you're being driven to have these stress eating cravings. This is why you want potato chips and cupcakes, and this is why you want those stress foods, because of these stress hormones like cortisol are sending a signal. Well, let's fight back against that, right? Let's get your cortisol levels down by eating these other foods, or get your serotonin levels up by eating these other foods. So we're in a really interesting time where we can say that what we feed the body, right, what foods we put into our gut, are changing our psychology. So the body is changing the mind. People have heard this idea of mind body medicine. I kind of flip it around a little bit and I talk about body mind, because what's happening in the body, especially the food that we're delivering to the gut, is changing our stress, it's changing our inflammation, it's changing our neurotransmitters. And we can use food and use nutrients to really sort of push us away from feeling crummy and to feeling energetic and in a good mood and creative and powerful and just impactful in everything that we want to do. It sounds, a lot of times when I say it, somebody who's sitting there and they're kind of stressed out and they're kind of feeling blah, they'll listen to me talk and they go, this guy's crazy. What is he doesn't understand my life. He's talking about this pie in the sky utopian ideal, and I'm not at all. I see this every day, Jovonnie, that if we just shift somebody a little bit, they, it gets better and better and better, and they completely change who they are and how they show up. It's amazing to see.
It is. And I think not only is it amazing to see, you feel good to be a part of that journey for someone to be able to start feeling better, living better, and
Right.
be able to witness that transformation only because you were intentional about going on that journey yourself,
Right.
and educating yourself in regards to it as well. Dr. Shawn, when you're talking about those different foods and how those foods really help, what would you think the top 5 foods people should consider
Yeah.
getting more in?
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to hear this again. Like we said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again. This isn't about completely overhauling your entire diet, right? If you want to do that, God bless, right? I'll help you do that. But you don't need to do that, right? It's like, I mean, you gave an example just a little bit ago. Change to do a juice in the morning, do a smoothie in the morning, right? Great. That's a great place to start. I gave the example of doing a salad for dinner. Great place to start. probably the best thing that people can do is start eating more fiber. That is probably the biggest nutrition deficiency that everybody has, right? Even people who sort of eat well still are not getting enough fiber. And the best way to get fiber is to eat more fruits and vegetables. And so one of the ways I try to make it fun for people, there's this thing I've been advocating for a bunch of years called the 30 plant challenge, where you gamify it, right? You tell people, you know what? I want you to eat 30 different plants within a 7-day period. And they go, you can see people, like when I'm talking about this, you can see people kind of counting it up on their fingers going, most people can get to 5 easily. Most people can get to 10 pretty easily. But then once you go to 11, 12, people are like, do red peppers count, and green peppers and yellow peppers? Can I count all of them separately? Yes, you can count them all separately. And spices count too. So I'll have people say, I'll say, you know what? 7 days. We're going to do this. We're going to do this little game. I want you to eat 30 different plants over that time point. And what you end up doing is, because you're getting this diversity of different fruits and vegetables, you're changing the diversity of your gut microbiome, and you're improving the diversity of the signals that they send. So by eating those foods, now you're making more serotonin, so you're happier. You're making more dopamine, so you're more motivated. You're making more GABA, so you're less stressed out. You're more creative. Your brain fog goes away. Over those 7 days, I'll get people who come back all the time and say, you know what? I didn't even know I had brain fog until it went away. And now I'm thinking clearer, and I didn't even realize I had this problem before. And it's all because we're getting more fiber. And just one more thing. The reason the fiber is so important is because that's the food that the bacteria in your gut use. That's their fuel. And once they eat that fiber, they produce these wonderful signaling molecules that help us feel better. So that's one of the main reasons that fiber is so good for us. And most of us are just very deficient in it because we're not eating the fruits and vegetables, and we're eating too many processed foods.
I like it. What if they say, well, Dr. Shawn, I don't even know, where am I supposed to get my fiber from? I don't have a nutritional background. What fiber rich food should I be even thinking about?
Yeah, just go to the produce section of your regular grocery store, right? You don't have to go to any of the fancy grocery stores, right? That, whole this and whole that, right? The regular grocery store. You know what I'm talking about, right? Sometimes that store is called Whole Paychecks for a reason, right? Because it's expensive to eat that way. But you can go and just, grab a head of lettuce or spinach, or any of the green leafies that are there. Grab a head of that. Grab some peppers, grab some cucumbers, grab some tomatoes. That's the standard stuff lots of people eat. But then why don't you get adventurous and go around the produce section and try to figure out, like, what the heck is that? I don't even think I know what that is. So get it and bring it home, and maybe ask the produce guy, what am I supposed to, how do I cook this? Am I supposed to cook it, or do I eat it raw? Do I have to peel it before I eat it, or what? And then you can get a little imaginative, like, all right, let's make a game of this. And now I'll try something maybe I've never had before. I'll try one of those weird fruits, or one of those weird roots or something like that. I used to do this with my kids. When my kids were at home, we'd go to the produce section, we'd be like, all right, everybody go find something. Try to find something you've never seen before, and we'll bring it home and we'll eat it. Maybe we like it, maybe we don't, but at least we tried it,
I like that. I like bringing the kids into it, especially if they're already grocery shopping with you, and making them, or encouraging them to then go and find a fruit or vegetable, something they've never tried before,
Yep.
and then exploring that as a family, being curious about it. And I think that really helps shapes adults who are now more intentional about their food choices,
Right.
because they become more curious about their health, their habits, and their healing. But it's because they're seeing someone model it and encourage it. And I think that's important. I've realized some of my students, they actually really do love fruits. And I like it, because it seemed like the older population I was working with, like the ones in high school, they really talk about the types of fruits they really love and enjoy. Yep. But on that middle school level, it was more the candy, the snacks, the different things that they like. And it was harder for them to, like, they'll say, Miss Ford, I want to try your juice. Miss Ford, I want to try your smoothie. And I'll let them have a sip of my juice or my smoothie. They'll all bring the little cups, plastic cups, and I'll let them taste it. And they could really tell the difference from something that's store-bought, that has a lot of processed
totally.
sugars,
Yep.
And then they were like, well, this actually isn't too bad. That's really good. And then, of course, talking about those benefits with my girls about, period pain and different things like that when it comes to, just their life, their healthy habits, and their this, things that they never would have experienced had I
Right.
not allowed them to. But then I love when some students will be like, well, my mom's juicing, or she juices and she likes it. And I've tried some of hers. And so I really love that we are getting kids more involved, more curious, and we gamify it. Y'all drop 7-day in the comments. I want people to really run this part of the episode back to really hear Dr. Shawn's 7-day challenge, where you're doing a 30 plant challenge. You're trying
Mm-hmm.
30 different types of plants, fruits and vegetables, different ones within 7 days. And then you're going to truly reflect and look back over and see what type of signals did I see? How did I feel incorporating these 30 different plants within these 7 days? I'm excited, and I think I'm going to challenge some of the people I love and care about and see if they're willing to embark on this 30-day plant challenge with me for 7 days. And I might even document it, Dr. Shawn, just to see how it goes. And for anybody who doesn't know, fiber is just really good for you. And so it's your fruits, it's your vegetables. And most of the time you try to have them not cooked, because sometimes you can cook out a lot of the nutritional
Mm-hmm.
value. So if you can, try your best to, eat them fresh and whole, if possible, depending on the choices that you make. But remember that fiber is fuel. Drop fiber is fuel in the comments so no one misses that gem. All right. Your brain can create peace from ingredients it's never given. I'm going to say it one more time. Your brain can't create peace from ingredients it was never given. Go give your body something that you've never given it before, and go love your body the way you need to. Dr. Shawn, one thing I've noticed coaching women is they're often tell me, I'm just hormonal, or I'm just emotional, or I'm just stressed. But I've started asking a different question. What if your body has simply run out of the nutrients it needs to keep protecting you?
Mm-hmm.
Shawn, how often do you see that?
Yeah, well, I see it all the time. If you're, and I was just going to use the word deficient, right? And deficient probably is not the right word. Suboptimal would be a better description of it. If you're suboptimal in any of the essential vitamins and minerals, you're not going to have they're what we call in biochemistry, they're cofactors to make your enzymes run. They're cofactors for your body to build hormones and neurotransmitters and things like that. So, we just talked about neurotransmitters and stress hormones and things like that. If you don't have the baseline nutrients, your body can't even produce those in the first place. So it's really, really important for people to be able to let that metabolic machinery run. But then there's also the aspect of, you might have the right vitamins and minerals, you might have the right fiber that we just talked about for your microbiome to make these signaling molecules, but you might have things going on in your body that are blocking. So if your cortisol is too high, if your inflammation is too high, if your blood sugar is fluctuating too much because you're eating processed foods and you're not eating on a regular basis, that can interfere with all of this. So one side of the equation is, are you producing the right amount of these biochemicals? The other part of it is, your body in a place where you can efficiently send those signals and receive them in the places where they need to be received. So, we talk about the gut a lot of times as being your second brain, because it's the thing that is producing a lot of these feel-good chemicals. But if your brain is inflamed or your brain is overstressed, you're not going to be able to receive that great information the same way. So that's where we say, like, mind body or body mind. We need to make sure we're giving the right nutrients coming in, but we also need to make sure that the internal chemistry is in the right place. And that's where mindfulness and breath work and gratitude and moving your body and getting good sleep quality and those sort of lifestyle issues are really important, to make sure that everything is in balance, sort of like the input and the output are able to balance with each other.
And I think that's really important that you remind us of balance. Y'all comment the word balance if you're vibing with us on YouTube. And if you listen on your favorite podcast distribution platform, go ahead and follow the podcast, leave a rating, but make sure you check the show notes and connect with us. I like that balance. And I think it's important, Dr. Shawn, because some people will say, well, I tried everything, and that everything would mean I might have tried eating more plant-based for a certain period of time, or I might have tried this protocol, or I might have tried this supplement, or I might have tried this fad, trend, insert whatever it is you may have
Yep.
tried. And it was wholly focused on maybe two aspects or three aspects, but it
Yep.
didn't take
Yep.
in consideration your whole lifestyle when it comes to your mindset, when it comes to managing stress, when it comes to your sleep hygiene, when it comes to the foods that you use, when it comes to how you move your body. It's so many, the environment that you're in, the relationships that you have.
Yep.
It is such a complex thing because your body is complex. So if you put your mind and your body, two complex things that are already, attached, it's really trying to find that alignment that goes along with that
Right.
balance. And so I'm really
Alignment
glad
is the
you
thing,
talked
right?
about
They need to be in sync with each other, right? So I
Mhm.
love that. I love that you're talking about that. That's exactly what it
Yes,
is. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And
If
I,
someone's brain, go ahead,
yeah, no,
Sean.
no. I was going to say. So I did a master class last night that I just
Okay.
posted a few minutes ago. But just before we started talking, I posted it
Uh-huh.
to my YouTube channel that people can check that out if they want to. And it was around this idea of, you know, it can be really complex, right? When you and I start, just vibing with each other and saying, yeah, and this, and this, and this, and this, and a listener might go, oh my gosh, this is too much. I can't even, right? And I want to say to people, and I said this on the masterclass, it really is what we're talking about is a multifactorial issue. So it could be this, and 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 it could be that. And what you really need is a multifactorial solution, right? It's like we need to think of this as a whole system, and we need to rebalance the entire system. But the moral of the story is you don't have to rebalance the whole system today. You just need to do something today, right? So pick one and do that consistently for a while and see if that solves your problem. And likely what's going to happen is that if you do it consistently, you're going to get a little bit better. You're going to get somewhat better. And then because of that, you're going to feel like picking another thing and getting a little bit better in that. And then maybe picking another thing and getting a little bit better in that. So it's really like this consistent baby steps is where the magic happens. Like when I work with athletes, I will say to athletes all the time, listen, just trust the process, right? You're coming to your workouts every day, you're eating your, whatever your diet is every day, you're getting your recovery and your sleep quality every day. You need to keep doing that, and that's what's going to get you to the world championships or whatever it is that we're striving for, right? You sometimes need to almost like step away from that big goal of becoming your best self and come back to the basics and be like, you know what, if I just adhere to the basics and trust the process and put in the reps, whatever way you want to say it, you're gonna make progress to where you need to be.
I'm gonna say embrace the process.
Love
That's
it.
how I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say embrace the process. And the reason why I say this, Dr. Shawn, is because I feel like you kind of hit on something big. What came to mind is all of these different quick fad diets approaches where people
Yep.
are just trying to look for a quick fix. They're trying to see how can I achieve my big goal really quick without utilizing the basics and building a life around the basics. And that's really embracing the process of living with intention and creating a lifestyle around your health, your habits, and your healing. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really important. And I love that you reminded us that it's a system, a systematic approach to truly addressing who you are, who you want to become, and your vitality that's attached
Yep.
to it. So y'all comment the word system. Thank you, Dr. Shawn, for really breaking that down. And that's the whole reason why we have the conversation. And the conversation is for you to choose at least one thing that feels
Yep.
empowering, to give yourself permission to heal and do one thing differently. And that's why it's the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives, because we're here to empower you, but not to expect you to take every single thing that we talked about and just implement it overnight, but to just be inspired and empowered to know that you have power in your hands to heal intentionally. And there's things that you can do and things internally that can really align with what it is that you may need to help yourself today versus looking for someone or something to help you later down the road. You are what you've been looking for. Dr. Shawn, if someone's brain could talk, what foods would it beg them to eat more of and why?
Yeah. Oh, good question. I love how you put that. So besides fiber, probably the next most important thing is what polyphenols or flavonoids, or like these plant compounds that aren't really, they're not technically vitamins and minerals, but they're still really essential signaling molecules, right? So polyphenols or flavonoids or carotenoids, all these phytonutrients, they're the things that make fruits and vegetables brightly colored. So the reason that that a pepper is red or yellow or green is because of the different phytonutrients are in it, right? So the one that people will know is like the reason that a carrot is orange is because of the beta carotene in there, right? So that color is very indicative of what it's going to help do in the body. And what your brain really wants is a lot of color. So your gut wants a lot of fiber that we already just talked about. Your brain wants a lot of color. So another thing that we'll say to people is, do the 30 plant challenge, 7 days, blah, 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 like we just talked about. Sometimes we'll do a different game and we'll tell people to eat a rainbow. Try every day to eat something that's green, something that's purple, something that's yellow, something that's orange. And if you can eat that whole rainbow, you're getting a lot of those phytonutrients, and they're going to be good for every tissue, right? They're good for your heart, they're good for your blood vessels, but they're really, really good for your brain. And they're associated with better mental focus and better problem solving and better what we call executive function, which is just your brain doing all the wonderful things that your brain is supposed to be able to do. So yeah, that's what I would say is that, get your phytonutrients. And if you're eating the rainbow, or you're doing a 30 plant challenge, you're kind of solving two things at the same time. You're getting the fiber for your second brain, your gut, and you're getting the phytonutrients for your first brain in your head.
I like it. I like it. And y'all are taking notes. Remember, the fiber is helping address the gut. That's those fruits, those vegetables. And you can embrace the 30 plant challenge for 7 days. And then the phytonutrients really helping with the brain. Think lots of colors, the colors of the rainbow. What does that challenge look like? Is that another 7-day challenge, or it's eat the colors of the rainbow in 1 day? Like, just
That's
make
what
sure
it
you
is.
get
Yeah.
the red
In one
1
day,
day.
try to get all the colors, and then try to, and then you can be advanced. You can say, let's do a streak where I did it 3 days in a row and then I fell off the wagon. So now I'm going to try to start it again. And I'm going to try to go 4 days in a row, and you just try to, and it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be a huge serving of something green. It can be on your plate, all right, a little bit of green there and a little bit of, red over there. It makes it fun.
It does. And then it gets you back to what you stated earlier, getting imaginative, being
Mhm.
creative, having fun with it. So, y'all, rainbow challenge a day, rainbow challenge a day, drop rainbow challenge in the comments. So, we talked about the role of fiber. What about the healthy fats, the proteins, and probiotics? How do they help people feel emotionally better, Dr.
Yeah,
Shawn?
so before we get into the probiotic piece of it, like I will say to people all the time that it's fiber, flavonoids, which are, one class of the phytonutrients, and fermented foods. Those are the
Mm.
top three things to improve the signaling across your whole gut brain axis. And fermented foods are something that most Americans just don't hardly even think of, right? If you ask most Americans to say like what's a fermented food, they
I
might
only
come
got
up with
two.
yogurt,
No,
it,
I was gonna say, oh my gosh, I had it. Kimchi
kimchi,
and
yes.
sauerkraut and
Yep.
sauerkraut. Those were
Yep, those are
the two
wonderful.
I was
In
gonna
fact, there
say.
was a good study came out about a month ago showing that kimchi can actually improve your immune system. And so you get two benefits of that. If your immune system is stronger, you're more likely to, or you're less likely to, catch a virus or something like that,
Mhm.
cold, flu, COVID, that kind of stuff. But having a stronger immune system helps your gut and your brain talk to each other. The immune system is one of the big pieces of when we talk about the gut brain axis. The axis is the communication network between your brains, and your immune system is a big piece of that. So I'll tell people, add a little bit of fermented food. So that could be unsweetened yogurt. It could be kimchi, it could be sauerkraut, it could be kombucha. There's all kinds of wonderful kombuchas out there. With yogurt and kombucha, the only thing you have to watch out for is that a lot of them are really full of sugar. And so you need to make sure you're getting a low sugar content. But what that will do is it will help set up the right environment in your gut so that you can grow the good bacteria. And once you have the good bacteria, they can make more of those neurotransmitters so that you feel better. So there's all kinds of really, really good reasons why we want to nourish this whole gut-brain axis.
Yes, sir. And then what about when it comes to the probiotics and
Yeah,
healthy
so once you've
protein?
done those things, once you've added some fiber, added some fermented foods, added some flavonoids, then you can get into the little nitty-gritty details of, all right, now, do I want to optimize my gut with specific probiotics? And
Mm,
the kind of rule of thumb there is that you want to choose specific strains for specific benefits. Don't just, go off to the store and say, oh, let me find the probiotic that has the highest count, or the, longest list of different bacteria on its label. You want to look for ones that have a specific strain, because the big thing I talk about with probiotics is this concept called strain specificity. So you might have one strain of probiotic that helps with your constipation. You might have another strain that helps with your diarrhea. Those are completely different effects. One of them is going to speed up your gut. One of them is going to slow down your gut. And you want to make sure you choose the right one. So there are some strains that help your immune system. There are some strains that lower inflammation. There are some strains that can actually balance hormones. So, a menopausal woman could choose one strain that helps with her hot flashes. There are
mm.
good strains that help women with recurrent yeast infections. I study a lot of strains for mental wellness benefits. So there are strains that can improve your mood. There are strains that can lower your anxiety. There are strains that can lower your stress or improve your sleep quality. So like that's the thing to look for, is like, don't just look for any old probiotic. Look for a probiotic that helps you with whatever benefit that you're looking for.
I really appreciate that because I had no idea it went that deep when it came to the probiotic strains and
Yeah, and
thinking
that the
about it.
kind
And I
the
like
kind
that
that
you
I
go
Yeah, the
ahead.
kind that I focus on are actually called psychobiotics, because they're specific strains of probiotics that change your psychology. So like in this
Mm,
product, for example, Zenith, this is a product that I formulated, and this has strains in it that help with your mood, your stress levels, your sleep quality. So
mm.
they're not like, they have, they help gut health, which is great, but as a result of helping with gut health, they change how you feel, right? So that's why we call them psychobiotics.
I like that because I feel like that's important because some people just be like, well, go get you a probiotic or you just need
Yep.
some probiotic, not thinking about, oh, I need probiotics for the hot flashes, probiotics
Right.
for, the constipation,
Right.
probiotics. And I
Probiotics
really,
for what exactly? Yeah.
and you challenge us to make sure that we're choosing a probiotic strain that is going after the benefit that we're seeking, and that
Right.
comes with awareness. And so you're not just choosing something just to choose it. And so I'm
Right.
really glad that you talked that through and broke that down. And what I'm also grateful for, because I know protein is important, I just feel like so many people just protein, 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 protein,
Right.
and like you said, we're not getting enough fiber. And there's so many different things that are included in this conversation when it comes to, nourishment and fuel for the body, the mind and the body together, that it's not just about the protein. And so
Right.
I'm really glad that we're giving them something else to think about and consider, to understand how valuable it is to really think about nutrition as a whole picture.
Whole picture. Exactly.
Yeah. I really like that because food isn't just fuel, it's instructions for your biology.
Yeah, that's
Let's
exactly it, right? It's food. The food. I'm so glad you said that. The food is basically information about how your body and your mind should function. And if we're giving, if we're putting junk in, we're gonna get junk out.
Mhm.
It's and if we put good stuff in, we're gonna get good stuff out. And it's just a matter of, it can get so complicated if you let it, but it really comes down to the basics. Get your protein, that's important. Get your healthy fats, get your fiber, get your phytonutrients, get a few fermented foods in there whenever you can, right? And have fun with those, because they're, some of these fermented foods like kimchi, for example, that packs a punch. Some of it's really
It does.
spicy. But once you start playing with it, I actually, like, when I make a little taco or a burrito at home, I'll put kimchi inside of it, because it gives a little bit of crunch. It brings in some of this spiciness. It
And a
kind
little
of cuts
tang.
the savory of whatever meat I'm putting in there. And people are like,
Mhm.
what you do? And then when they try it, they go, oh, that's actually a really interesting way to do it,
I
So
had another guest on the podcast, DK, and he has a Korean background, and he loved his mom's kimchi. His wife had endometriosis, and I believe also a cancer diagnosis. And so he even created like a whole kimchi cookbook, because so many of his coworkers wanted to try his
that's
kimchi, and
awesome.
he would put kimchi on everything, even pizza. And
Yeah.
when he put it on the pizza, they were like, oh, this is good. And
Yeah.
I haven't had kimchi on pizza, but I have had it, I think, like on like French fries or
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that. Like I've seen
Yeah.
different ones. So I love the taco idea, because it definitely aligns. It's almost like you're thinking you're about to have some kind of like coleslaw,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. Yep.
definitely something a little different. And so I
Yep.
think that was a great imaginative, creative suggestion for the people when it comes to getting in a little bit more
Love
of
it.
the kimchi. Let's connect this specifically to women, Dr. Shawn. How does a unhealthy gut quietly influence hormonal balance,
Yeah.
especially in women living with endometriosis, maybe experiencing PMS, polycystic ovary syndrome, or
Yep.
estrogen dominance? And why should that microbiome become part of that conversation?
Yeah, so for the exact same reasons that we just talked about, your microbiome will. So what happens in your gut doesn't stay in your gut, right? If your gut is in balance, you're going to be making a lot of the feel good chemicals, right? The neurotransmitters that we talked about. If your gut is out of balance, you're going to be making more inflammatory compounds, and that's a lot of the reason that we say, like, oh, these are good bacteria, these are bad bacteria. The reason the bad bacteria are bad is because they tend to be inflammatory. And those inflammatory signals, these compounds that we call cytokines, can block a lot of the metabolic signals that we need to function the right way. So they can block insulin, which is going to interfere with your blood sugar control. They can block estrogen, so that's going to change the whole hormonal cycling and things like that. But if your gut is in balance, it can actually help to recycle some of those hormones in the right way. So it really is like, I try to explain to people that your gut microbiome, your bacteria, are like having an internal, on demand, dynamic pharmacy that will make if it's in balance, it will make what you need at the right time, in the right amounts. And that goes for neurotransmitters, but it also goes for hormones, and it also goes for metabolic signals. And so if we can get your gut microbiome in balance, it's not like, you get your gut in balance and all your problems magically go away, right? It's not like, I wish it were like that. But if it's out of balance, no matter what you're doing, you're always going to be spinning your wheels to a certain level, right? And so we see that I see that with women who are trying to get their hormones in balance. I see it for people who are trying to lose weight. I see it for people who are trying to, go from feeling blah to feeling good again. They're doing all the things, but something about their gut is still out of balance, and that's causing them to, they go on this diet and it doesn't really work, or they start this physical activity program and it doesn't really work. Like, you'll get a little bit of benefit, but not the benefits that they're looking for, and it's because their gut is still out of balance. We put their gut in balance, and they'll come back up, a couple of weeks later and go, everything changed. It was like somebody flipped a switch, and now everything is going in the right direction. Eureka. And I have to remind them, like, it's not just the gut thing, it's that you fix the gut thing and you kept doing all those other great things you were doing. Now your gut is fixed, and now all those other great things are just gaining better traction. So it's enabling your hard work to deliver more benefits if your gut's in balance versus not.
getting better traction in that system, you're now being
Yep.
intentional about operating in your body. I like when you said what happens in your gut shouldn't stay in your gut. It goes
Yes,
back to that
exactly.
whole Vegas thing. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yep.
You
Yep.
don't want what's happening in your gut to stay in your gut. That was a powerful moment for me. But I also think that it's important. Y'all comment the word gut because we definitely getting it in when it comes to the gut conversation, with our nutritional biochemist, Dr. Shawn, on the line in the Good Vibe studio. But I like that you also talked about how things can be blocking your hormones and
Hmm.
the insulin. And that's really important for people to understand because it's not just a simple, I take this and everything's going to work.
Right.
And I'm really grateful that we're showing how complex it can be to get your system in alignment, but it takes intentional work and it takes one step at a time. And it
Hmm.
also helps when you have a guide or have people that's coaching you and allowing you to really go through this system and understand the protocols that are put in place so you can best understand how to show up for yourself and your body, because we didn't just were raised knowing exactly what our body needed and how to
Right.
truly align it. Like that's just not how we naturally grew up, in our society here in the US. That's just not what
Right.
it truly
Exactly.
looks like. One thing that I always remind women is that your body is carrying what your life normalized. So if that's ultra processed foods, constant stress, poor sleep, and eating on the run, those all become your normal. That's what
Right.
you normalize. We
Right.
can't
Right.
expect the body to all of a suddenly create optimal health because that's what we desire. Food
Right.
becomes one of the fastest ways to communicate safety to your body. And Dr. Shawn has already given us so many different insights and tools on how we can make those decisions just by how we shop in the grocery store, getting in the 3 F's, the fiber, the fermented foods, and the flavonoids, challenging yourself to get those colors in every single day. Try it for 1 day, 2 day, 3 days, doing the 7 day, 30 plant challenge. There's so many different ways that you can show up for yourself when it comes to your food, knowing that it impacts your mood, your biochemistry, and your brain. And so every bite is either feeding healing or feeding dysfunction. I'm gonna say it one more time so you really can see it.
100%. Yeah. Say that
Every
again.
bite, every bite is either feeding healing or it's feeding dysfunction. Dr. Shawn, if someone listening today only changed one thing on their plate tomorrow morning, what would create the biggest improvement over the next 90 days?
Yeah, I think any of those three F's, right? If you can do any of those three F's, fiber, fermented foods, and flavonoids, and do it consistently, then and if you miss a day, just get back on it the next day, right? Don't think that everything's ruined. Just keep consistent with those little changes, right? Those tiny little steps really really add up. And I think you said it, but I'm going to say it again just for emphasis. The reason that I focus on nutrition was I'm a nutritional biochemist, right? So that makes sense. But it is such an immediate impact, right? What you eat right now, you said bite to bite to bite, every bite affects what's happening in your microbiome and your gut and across your gut brain axis. It is a direct, very powerful impact that you can have right now, which delivers a benefit. And so that's one of the reasons it's so beneficial for so many people.
I like that you said that nutrition is an immediate impact. So many people say, "How do I get help? I need something right now. What can I do?" And I love that you said nutrition gives you that immediate impact. He
Hmm.
didn't say immediate benefit. He said immediate
That's
impact. It's
right.
going to start making a impact in that holistic complex system we've been talking about, which is your body and your mind. Dr. Shawn, imagine your younger brother was sitting across from you today, knowing
Hmm.
everything that you know now. What's the conversation you wish you could have had with him?
I wish I could have said to my younger brother Troy, that now I know, to 25 or so years in the future, I know what was causing his ADHD, and I know what
Mhm.
was causing his anxiety and his panic attacks. It was the fact that his gut was out of balance. And I could say to him, hey, three F's: fiber, fermented foods, flavonoids. I could say to him, eat the rainbow. I could say to him, let's have a little challenge between brothers. We're going to see how many of these 30 plants that we can eat in 7 days. Like, are we going to get 30 plants in? I did it in 3 days, or over 7 days, I did 30, I did 40, like you can have a little competition like that. Like, that's what I would have done with him. And I can guarantee, based on the research and based on what I've seen in my own practice, that he would have started feeling better. His mental focus would have been better. His calmness would have been better. His stress resilience would have been better. He wouldn't have had to turn to, illicit drugs to, change the way he was feeling. We would have been able to, like, really use this food mood connection to help him feel better in his own skin. And because of that, he might be here with us today, but that's you can't change the past.
You can't, but we can tell it still has an impact and how you're
Mm-hmm.
able to help other people as well. Dr. Shawn, I want to just talk about one thing, and we're going to get into our Vitality Sparks round. Where do you encourage curiosity before embracing medication? Like, how can someone begin asking better questions about their health instead of just assuming they'll always just feel this way?
Yeah, well, people ask me lots of questions about medications, and I'm not anti-pharmaceutical at all, right? Because I understand the biochemistry of the pharmaceuticals also, like I understand the biochemistry of food and nutrients. And I think for some people, medications are going to be the right thing, but I don't think it's a first line therapy for most people. I think, the medications are there. Let's use ADHD or depression as an example. Somebody might not be able to focus. They might, their mood might be really low. They go talk to their doctor about it. And the knee jerk reaction a lot of times is, oh, we're going to give you this ADHD drug, or we're going to give you this antidepressant, or, fill in the blank, right? I think a better approach for most people is the curiosity. Well, what else could I do to help with my focus? And we've talked about some of them. What else could I help with my mood? And we've talked about some of them. Why don't you try that first, right? Why don't you try, saffron for your focus? Why don't you try a psychobiotic for your mood? Why don't you try eating more fiber or fermented foods or any of the things that we've discussed? Because that we know from the science that there's really good evidence that that's going to change the way that you feel, change the way that you show up. And that might be what you needed. And if it's not, if you do that and you go, well, I get this much better, but I really need to get this much better, then those medications are there as a second line therapy or a third line therapy versus a first line therapy, right? And I think like I think that's what your physician probably wants, but the way our healthcare system is, like they don't have the time to sit and talk for an hour like we just did and explain to people why it's good and what they should do and what foods and all that kind of stuff. They've got 5 minutes with you, and sometimes it's just, here you go, here's the prescription. And that's not good or bad. It's just how it is. And I want people to be a little more curious and say, what's going to be good for me in the long term? And what are my options here, right? You said at the very beginning, people need the permission to be empowered, that they can go and do this. And I think people sometimes need to hear that like, hey, wait a minute, it's up to me. I have the power here. I'm going to make the decisions, and I'm going to try this, and we'll see how that goes, and then I can decide what's next.
Agreed. And you can hear that every week on the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast. Y'all, curiosity is often the first prescription for healing. Don't forget it. All right, Dr. Shawn, you ready for our Vitality Sparks round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Quick fire, rapid responses. You're going to be utilizing the fill in the blank. Complete the sentence model. You ready?
Okay.
Here we go. Food is
Medicine.
one food most people think is healthy, but isn't. Is
Sweetened yogurt.
the happiest bacteria your gut love.
The happiest bacteria is probably a kind of bacteria called bifidobacterium.
Okay. One thing your brain desperately needs every day is
Laughter.
Healing begins
When we show up and start making our own decisions. And I
let's
would add, get curious. I'm going to start using that. I love that.
I like it. Dr. Shawn, give some advice to the girl dads, father figures, male role models, husband, partner, spouses of girls, women dealing with heavy periods, pelvic pain, fatigue, exhaustion, endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids. How could men be more involved in this healing journey?
Yeah, men need to realize that, half the population of the world goes through these kinds of things, right? And like I have a daughter. When she was starting to, have her period for the first time, and it happens every month, and I said to her, "Listen, honey, you probably don't want to talk to me about this, but you can, right? This is something we all know that this happens. We know, like, because of my specific training, there's things that we can do that can help with, lowering your inflammation, lowering your stress. We know that when you're stressed out and you're like your period symptoms are going to be worse. We know when you're overinflamed, we know your period symptoms are going to be worse. Like, just like, this is part of how the body works, and it's a natural process, so I think we need to all be like, embrace that, if you will.
I like it because I don't feel like enough fathers are embracing the conversation. It's, well, talk to your mother or talk to other women
Right.
in the family, versus this is natural. This is how your body works. You're not the only women to go through a period, but to also understand, and I like this component that you brought in, when these things are at a higher level, we know that your period experiences are going to be
Mm-hmm.
worse or painful. And so for those dealing with pelvic pain, heavy bleeding, cyst, just different types of symptoms and issues, just know that if you're highly stressed, if you're highly inflamed, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're
Yep.
overwhelmed, all of these things play a part in how your body is going to be communicating through these phases of your cycle. And so I'm really glad that you said, just talk about it and say, hey, I know you may not want to talk about it with me, but I'm here and I'm
Yep.
open and I'm willing. And sometimes it's just breaking down that wall, that barrier, and opening up the line of
Yeah,
communication.
I'll say this too, and I'll say this to guys. I say this to guys all the time. A lot of times, you're making yourself open to listen. You are not there to solve the problem, right? Guys have this default state of, okay, give me some information, let me solve the problem for you. That isn't part of what you're there for. You're there to be a sounding board. Okay, so listen, don't solve unless you're asked to solve.
Listen, don't solve unless you have that expertise, and we're
That's
wanting
right.
you to help us solve. I like it. If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
Can I choose someone who's still alive?
Of course, I did not say dead. We're
Okay, I
making
would.
history today with this episode, Dr.
Well,
Shawn.
I'd choose Barack Obama. I think
Okay.
he's one of the most interesting dudes that I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. I'd love to have dinner with him.
What are you eating with Barack Obama?
Well, I think we're probably not eating the three Fs. I think we're indulging. I think we're having really good burgers, actually.
Okay. Burgers with Barack. I am for it. I am for it. Dr. Shawn, let everybody know where they can connect with you.
But best place to find me is at my blog site, which is doctalbot.com.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Shawn. Y'all, sometimes we just need a good vibe in the Good Vibe Studio. If today's conversation reminds you that healing doesn't always begin with another prescription, sometimes it begins with a different question. What if my body is working against me? What if it's asking me for something? Food is so much more than just calories. And we already learned the three F's. It's chemistry, it's communication. It's one of the most powerful messages we send our body every single day. So you don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Small choices made consistently can change the way you think, the way you feel, the way you live. Until next time, y'all, keep choosing habits that heal, foods that fuel, and a life that honors what your body has been trying to tell you all along. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, host of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. This episode is sponsored by Forward Vibrations. Check the show notes to connect with me and my guests. Thanks for vibing with me, y'all.